I'm so excited about my new animation. What's this one about, no? Conflict resolution. You already did that one. You must be thinking about my animation on judging others favorably. The topics are related, but they're not the same thing. You know what the problem was with your last animation about judging others favorably? Everybody already thinks that they are judging others favorably. So you're not teaching them anything. What are you even talking about? Take politics, for example. Every person I know is convinced that their perspective is right and that the other guy is a schmuck. Why would you even consider giving a schmuck the benefit of the doubt? You can't judge a schmuck favorably. It's like the old George Carlin joke. Anybody driving slower than you is an idiot, but anybody driving faster than you is a maniac. You know, Hanan, my friend Shaul recently told me a great story about conflict resolution. I already have tons of books on modern theoretical models of conflict resolution, Daddy, so I'm set. No, this is a good one. It's about this anthropologist who spent a year deep in the forest studying a group of people who had absolutely no connection to modern civilization. So, after getting to know them for several months, she says to the children, okay, today I want to teach you a game that we play in the place where I'm from. It's called racing. So she throws 2 lines in the sand and has all of the children stand on one line and explains, I'm going to raise my arm like this, and when I lower my arm, you're going to run as fast as you can to the other line. And the first one to cross the other line wins. So she raises her arm and drops it. And nobody moves. So the anthropologist says, I'm sorry, maybe you didn't understand. When I drop my arm, you're all going to run as fast as you can. And the first one who gets to the other line wins. Then one of the children asks, so if one person wins, does that mean that everyone else loses? Well, yes, of course, the anthropologist answers. So the child asks, well, what kind of a game is that? So, what? Now we can't play Monopoly anymore? Trouble? Battleship? You did it, Daddy. You just single-handedly took away games. Not to mention, I have absolutely no idea what that story has to do with conflict resolution. There's nothing wrong with board games. I'm just not sure there's the best way to learn about life. And certainly not about conflict resolution. I think board games are excellent. They teach you how to win, and more importantly, how to lose. And the sooner those kids in that forest learn that part of life, the better off they're going to be. I think those children actually understand winning and losing much better than we do. What makes you say that? We focus exclusively on the winner, but they focus just as much on the loser. It's a question of dignity and respect. And that's essential if you're trying to resolve an argument. Of course I respect the person I'm arguing with, Daddy, but I also need to make sure I'm not being taken advantage of. Did I ever tell you about Yossi? Which one? Not that one. Yossi Sandberg. I grew up with him in Kinneret. He's very special. For example, there was one story about when Yossi went to buy a used car for his daughter Tali. So the car salesman tells him the car costs 30,000 shekels. Now in Israel, when a car salesman says 30,000 shekels, you say, are you crazy? I'm not going to pay a grosh more than 15,000 shekels. And then you begin to negotiate. But Yossi, he says to the car salesman, you know, this car is for my daughter Tali. And I can see that you're selling me a good car that will not break down in the middle of the night when my daughter is driving back from work. You're treating my daughter Tali as if she were your own daughter. And that makes me incredibly happy. I'm not going to pay you 30,000 shekels. I'm going to pay you 32,000 shekels because you're working so hard to help me keep my daughter safe and happy. And you deserve to go home happy like me. Yossi is the most popular person in the whole kibbutz. I really hope you're not expecting me to put that story in my animation on conflict resolution. Why not? For starters, that story is even more bizarre than the first story about the anthropologist. I mean, seriously, Daddy, have you considered that maybe Yossi's so popular because he goes around paying twice as much as he should? Face it, he's a friar. He's letting people take advantage of him. At first, I also asked myself, why would Yossi be such a friar? But then I started to think. If I was a person selling used cars, and people were coming in every day looking at me suspiciously, thinking of me as their enemy, as someone who's trying to take advantage of them, and then, suddenly, Yossi comes in and puts his faith in me, trusts me, dignifies me as a human being, and makes me feel like we're partners. This is the way Yossi treats everybody. He believes in people so strongly and trusts them. And it feels so good when someone acknowledges you in that way, that they don't want to lose that trust, and they rise to meet that expectation. But the reverse is also true. If you treat a person with suspicion and doubt, don't be surprised when they respond to you in the same way. Yossi brings out the best in people. Everybody loves Yossi, even the street gang members. They all want him to succeed, and they want to be like him. And as an additional bonus, he got a good car for his daughter Tali. Look, it sounds nice theoretically, but it's not practical. Even in cooperative/collaborative win-win theoretical models of conflict resolution, there is a balance. I have absolutely no idea what you just said. I'm just saying that you also have to be careful. Before you give up something, you have to be sure you're not going to be taken advantage of. You have to make sure you're safe. That's number one. Safety is a basic, even primal need. People who are fighting, Hanan, always say that giving up something is not safe. But one thing I know for sure, Hanan, you'll never get safety if you want to control everything. Trust is all about taking risk. I'm willing to dance with you, even though I'm not sure you're willing to dance with me. That's the paradox. In order to feel safe, in order to have trust, you have to be completely open, not only with the person you're arguing with, but also with yourself. And that means taking a risk and making yourself vulnerable. Make yourself vulnerable to the person you're fighting with? That's insanity. Why would you show your weakness? Vulnerability is not weakness, Hanan. Did you know that scientists actually measure bravery in a human being by how willing the person is to be vulnerable? Vulnerability is scary, and that's why people avoid it at all costs. But it's not weakness. Vulnerability is actually the key to a human need that is even more primal, even more essential than safety. What could possibly be more essential than safety? The human need for connection. You know, there was a song that my father used to sing. It went like this.
ואהבת לרעך, לרעך כמוך. ואהבת לרעך, לרעך כמוך.
What does it mean? It means love your neighbor as you love yourself. It doesn't say love them more. It doesn't say less. It just says you should love them the same as you love yourself. Yeah, I've heard that. But I've also heard that it depends how you define neighbor. Besides, you can love your neighbor while still protecting yourself. At a certain point, Hanan, I came to realize that we're all in this together. Even the person I'm arguing with, we're all in it together. We're neighbors. And if my neighbor is unhappy, then I will be unhappy. Because my neighbor has become my enemy. Well, you know me. I'm always willing to offer compromise. You know, Hanan, when I got fired from my job, there were so many people that offered their sympathy. Oh, that's too bad. But look, Micha, at least you still have a PhD. I'm sure you'll find something soon. If you need anything, please give me a call. I think they were just trying to make you feel better. Of course. But it just made me angry. What I needed was empathy. What's the difference? They were speaking from a position of power. They were looking down, feeling bad for me. But I needed them to be with me in my pain. So, you wanted them to get fired too? I was waiting for someone, just one person, to not offer solutions or advice. I wanted them to tell me about the time when they lost something and felt horrible and afraid, so we can share in the feeling together. Or better yet, not to say anything at all, and just be with me. Really be with me. When someone is arguing with you, Hanan, the last thing they want is for you to offer them a compromise. They don't want your advice or your opinions. They want you to put yourself in their shoes and see things from their perspective. They want your empathy. And that requires you to be vulnerable. But people will find any excuse not to be vulnerable because it's uncomfortable and terrifying. Instead, they choose to fight about something external, something they convince themselves that they can't live without, whether it be money or some other thing. They become angry because they're afraid. They need to control, they need to be right, they need to win. But it's just a distraction from a deeper, hidden need. But rarely do people make themselves vulnerable. So can I ask you something? If vulnerability is so uncomfortable and scary, why would anybody ever want to be vulnerable? Well, that's simple. Because we need connection. And the only way to truly connect to another human being is by being vulnerable. Besides, there's one thing that's even more terrifying than vulnerability. Getting to the end of your life and wondering what could have been. Suddenly realizing that you never truly took a risk. Hanan, if we manage to be vulnerable enough to empathize with the person we are arguing with, we can't help but acknowledge them, their humanity, their dignity, and we begin to connect. We need conflict, Hanan, because every conflict, every argument is an opportunity to connect and reconnect with the other person. And by doing so, we get to know the other person and ourselves in a deeper way. As partners, the two of us can create something new that's bigger than our individual selves. But this is very important, so please listen to this carefully. Until you truly love your neighbor as yourself, until you have the humility and vulnerability to think about their happiness, their dignity, their humanity, just as much as you are thinking about your own, you will never resolve conflict. And that is something that I think Yossi and the children in the forest understand better than we do.
Amar Rabbi Akiva, Amar Rabbi Akiva, Amar Rabbi Akiva, Amar Rabbi Akiva, ואהבת לרעך, לרעך כמוך, ואהבת לרעך, לרעך כמוך. זה כלל גדול, גדול בתורה, זה כלל גדול בתורה, זה כלל גדול, גדול בתורה, זה כלל גדול בתורה.
Beautiful.
היה יפה, בן שלי?
Very nice, Daddy.